All right, thanks again for joining. I'm Jeff Leach, and also have Dan Dickerson on the call. We are both employees of SiriusXM Marine, based out of the Washington, D.C. office, although we've been away from the office for over a year now with COVID, but we will be returning probably sometime this summer. And we also have Eric Coons from Furuno. So thank you for joining us, Eric, and Eric will chime in with Furuno related questions and some overviews on Furuno specifics.
Thanks, Dan and Jeff. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. All right, so first and foremost, if you're already a SiriusXM weather customer, you probably know this already, but we'll just go through some of the basics of fish mapping and our coverage area. So as you probably know, SiriusXM is satellite based. So it shows up via a weather receiver or via receiver and is displayed right on your multifunction display via satellite. It's not dependent on cell signal or internet. It doesn't come in the form of an app, and it literally is on the widescreen on your multifunction display. We have complete coverage about 150 to 200 miles offshore. If you look at this image of North America, the light blue shaded area is our coverage area. So that extends about 150 to 200 miles offshore. As part of the fish mapping service, in fact, a major part of the fish mapping service is our highest tier of weather called offshore weather. And if you're looking at your Furuno MFD and you have weather installed or fish mapping installed, you'll notice this icon, which is the SiriusXM weather icon. So for those of you who are just signing up or interested in signing up with fish mapping, recognize that you do have SiriusXM weather as well. And then as far as when you click on this icon, the weather icon, here are some of the weather services or features that we offer. Animated weather radar, which you can see moving across your screen here. There are lightning strikes. This is the features of where the storm is moving to. You have buoy information. So if you can see these little buoy symbols, you can click on those and pull up data that comes directly from those buoys. You also see these squares in here. These are marine zones. So you can actually pull up a marine zone report for an area where you are or area where you're going to. So just a few of the weather features. In addition, weather also comes with graphical sea surface temperatures. So colored graphical sea surface temperatures. And of course, if you click on the screen, you'll see the temperature of the sea in that particular area. So that's an overview on basics on SiriusXM weather, since it comes with your fish mapping package. Fish mapping itself, in addition to weather, comes with 8 dedicated features or layers to help you find fish. And we're going to go through each one of those features individually as they appear on the Furuno display in order. I did want to tell everybody where the data comes from, where the information comes from. So SiriusXM has partnered with a company called Maxar Technologies, probably not a super well-known company, but Maxar is known most for providing their Google Earth imagery. They employ a team of oceanographers that collect and analyze data from NASA and NOAA satellites. And they've been providing already commercial fishing industry for several decades with data, international, to help commercial fisheries find fish, manage fisheries. All right, Dan.
Okay, so I'll take it from here for a little bit. Going back to the home screen, if you are going to subscribe to fish mapping, you're going to need to install the latest software on your TZtouch display, and then you're going to need to set up your home screen, and it's very simple. Simply, if you're have a BBWX4 installed, you'll be able to click on the plus button here to add a screen, and then in the setup menu, you'll see there's a fish mapping icon in the lower right-hand corner. You simply select that icon, and it'll show up on screen, and then you select the green checkbox to save it. That permanently installs it on your home screen. So now you can click on that to open up your fish mapping functions. One note here, the fish mapping features cannot be combined on screen with other SiriusXM weather features. So it's a dedicated screen that you can bring up to show these features. However, it is a full function charting screen. So when you click on this button, it's going to bring up the chart page. If we were on the boat in the middle of the water here, the boat would show up, on the screen. So it is full function in that respect. You can save waypoints and whatnot, just like you can in a navigation screen. But for the fish mapping purposes, what you do next is you swipe up from the bottom, and it opens the fish mapping menu. And then the next thing to do would be to check your subscription. So in that menu, there's a subscription button that you click on. And what that does is it brings up the 8 layers that Geoff referred to. And if you are properly subscribed and have the proper software, then you're going to get these update time stamps show up as the material downloads. Now, we broadcast the fishing information every 20 minutes. So if you turn your unit on and you just missed the update, you may have to wait up to 19 minutes for it to come back around for it to download the information, but you should never have to wait more than about 20 minutes. And this is a good way just to check and see if your system is working and the data is there for you, so it's on screen when you need it. These 2 columns represent 2 different things. The first column that says updated is the time that we received the data from Maxar. That's when they gave us the information. And then the second column where it says received is when your receiver actually brought it on board. So that's how many minutes old. So realistically, that number shouldn't ever be any higher than 20, 20:00, if all systems are working properly. So another note about the update times themselves, I mentioned they come in every 20 minutes. However, the data is not new every 20 minutes, so to speak. These are the actual update times that Maxar sends us data. The sea surface temperature information updates every 3 hours. The sea surface temperature fronts, the first one was temperature contours, and we'll go into a little more detail in a minute. But the sea surface temperature fronts, the 30-meter subsurface temperature contours, that's 100 feet down, the plankton concentration contours, the plankton front strength, sea surface height anomaly, and weed lines, those pieces of data all update daily. And we try to get those updates out about 5 in the morning. And then lastly, the fishing recommendations. These take quite a bit more work to process, and we're only updating the fishing recommendations twice a week. And those are also put out about 5 a.m. on Tuesday and on Friday mornings. So that's the timing on the data. So next, I'm going to go back to the Furuno fish mapping menu and select sea surface temperature contours. And we also suggest to new users that you turn the legend on because it's kind of helpful going through some of the features, and we'll show you that as we go along. And then just click on the X in the upper corner to close the menu. So here we are. We've turned on sea surface contours, and what we're seeing is the water temperature, the surface water temperature in 2-degree increments. So we're looking at an 84-degree contour line here. And then down in the corner, we're seeing the menu that's showing us the range, the scale that we have set up. So we can see right now the way it's set up, we should be able to see water temperatures from 50 degrees to 89 degrees. So this is customizable in that respect, and we're going to show you how to do that. So what you do is bring up the menu and go to the fish mapping settings. And from the settings menu, you can then select your minimum temperature contour you want to see and your maximum contour temperature that you want to see. And I'll show you why you might want to do that. So here we're back on screen and we're seeing temperature contours close to shore of 76 degrees, 74 degrees, and further offshore we're at 78 degrees and 86 degrees. Well, as fishermen, we're looking for temperature breaks, and for specific species, oftentimes there's a very limited temperature range we'd like to find. So in order to reduce screen clutter and just look for where the breaks are, what we can do is adjust that temperature. So what I've done here is reset the temps from the, sorry about that, from 50 to 89 to 77 to 87. So we've made that range much smaller, and you can see the temperature contours that were close to shore are now gone after we've reset that range. So that's your temperature contour information. It's basically the same data that you saw on the traditional colored palette for sea surface temperature. It's just much more concise with just a simple line shown in 2-degree increments. And the reason we do this is to reduce screen clutter as we bring on the rest of the fish mapping layers. So now we're going to go bring up the menu again and select sea surface temperature fronts. So instead of showing you the sea surface temperature contour information, what's happened here is the oceanographers have looked at the data, and they've outlined where the most drastic temperature changes are occurring, where there's a more drastic temperature change, that's typically where the bait fish are more likely to congregate. So the temperature fronts are set up in a scale of 1 to 4. Very simple. 1 is a weak front, 2 is moderate, 3 is strong, and 4 is very strong. These are the areas that you want to look for when you're out there. The strong and very strong temperature fronts are where there's a very good temperature break. A lot of times these temp breaks will even cause a rip current, and we'll see some weeds, scattered weeds, accumulating along these break lines. So these are one of the key elements to fish mapping, to getting on the fish, is sea surface temperature fronts. Next, we're going to go look at subsurface temperatures. The oceanographers at Maxar have a software algorithm that they've designed for the commercial fisheries that use the surface temperature and other information that they have, and they are able to compute the temperature at basically 100 feet down. And here you're seeing a similar contour line to the surface contour, only the temperature is given in changes of tenths of a degree. You won't see anything close to shore because these only show up at 100 feet. It's a set level, 30 meters down, that we broadcast these temperatures. Now, to put it in a more useful way, and again on the legend over here, you also notice there's a scale on the color range, so you can at a glance see the cooler temperatures and the warmer temperatures based on the color of the contour line. But to put it in a little bit more perspective, here I'm showing you a split screen, and what I've done is I've brought up the surface temperature on the left-hand side of the screen and the subsurface temperature on the right-hand side of the screen. And this is the exact same time that this was taken and the exact same latitude and longitude. So we can see in this circled area on the surface, the water is 82 degrees, and at 100 feet, the water is about 7 degrees cooler. So this is an advantage this time of year as the Gulf Stream is starting to move up the coast and trying to identify where the Gulf Stream is. This is very advantageous. Also, you're going to find this in Florida and in warmer areas around the Gulf, where in the summertime, when the surface water is almost all the same temperature, to be able to go to this subsurface temperature field and see where the cooler water is, where the pelagic fish are more likely to be, this is going to be an advantage for you.
Yes.
So we're going to stop here and see if anybody has any questions.
Yep. And just a reminder that if you do have questions during the section that we just covered or during that section, just go ahead and chat during that section. We will compile those questions and then answer them. So in this particular case, if you had any sea surface temperature questions or weather related questions, go ahead and send them. Of course, we can answer those later. It's not a problem, but just encourage you to continue to chat your questions. It doesn't look like there. Yeah, go ahead, Eric.
I just wanted to just make a quick comment on the user interface of the TZtouch3 MFDs. And one thing that we've really strived for at Furuno was to really implement the fish mapping feature in a smooth way. Notice that everything is within 1 or 2 keystrokes. The edge swipe up layers menu has all the data right in front of you. You can easily select everything. Once you edge swipe up, once you're in the fish mapping display, it's super easy just to flip things on and off in different ways to really get the most out of the system with the fewest amount of keystrokes. And then also one other comment, notice that when Dan showed the contextual menus that pop up, wherever you touch on the screen, you're going to get information related to that particular latitude, longitude, or that point with respect to, submeter, subsurface temperatures or surface temperatures or any of the data that you're looking at, depending on what you have turned on. It's all contextual. It's designed to make it super easy and simple to really leverage and get the most out of the fish mapping service.
Yeah, thanks for that, Eric. There was a question. I fish in the San Diego area. Are all the same principles the same? And summaries available with the best opportunity zones. Dan, you want to answer that?
Yeah, sure. All the services are available in the San Diego area. There are a few caveats, though. Maxar is telling us that the weed line information that we're about to talk about, for example, is for sargassum. They can't identify kelp the way that they can identify sargassum. So the weed line information is not going to do you any good on the California coast. Other than that, though, the information is there.
Yep. So as far as SST information that we just covered, absolutely. In San Diego or anywhere else in our coverage area, you have all that data at your fingertips. The next question is, I may have missed it. How old is the SST data? Dan, you want to answer that? And then I assume it's similar to SST services where cloud cover can prevent getting a temperature reading.
Right. Are we talking about that, Geoff?
Yeah, we are. Well, maybe briefly mention it.
Okay. All right. So first of all, the SST data is updated every 3 hours. And the reason I was kind of joking with Geoff there is because you guys are going to be the first to hear this. We're in the process of implementing some new updates, and you don't have to do a thing. This is just going to be magically happen over the next, we hope, a few days even, that our sea surface temperatures will no longer be affected by cloud cover, which has been an issue in the past. If you had an overcast day, if you had heavy overcast for 3 days, we wouldn't be able to show you much sea surface temperature data. That is going to be a thing of the past.
Yep. Yeah. Really excited about that, and better resolution and accuracy, which is great. All right. For the sake of time, let's keep on moving and keep the questions coming. We're going to move into the next set of features now. And now going back to the menu, we're going to talk about Plankton. So first and foremost, we're talking about Plankton contours. So you click on contours, click out of the menu, and contour lines appear on your screen. You will notice in this particular case that the lesser density or lesser values of plankton, otherwise often known as chlorophyll, the lesser densities of plankton are shaded in lighter green lines, and the darker densities of plankton are shaded in darker green lines. They also have a value on those lines. That value is plankton milligrams per cubic meter. So that's plankton concentration contours. Let's go back to the menu again and talk about plankton front strengths. So we're going to click on front strengths, X out of the menu, and very similar to what Dan just explained with sea surface temperature front strengths, These are graded on a scale. The scale is a little bit different. We don't have ones for plankton just because plankton fronts are not very useful. So we've graded these on a scale of 2 to 4. A 2 is a moderate front, as you can see here. A 3 is a strong front, and a 4 is a very strong front. Again, these come in shadings, so color gradients as well. The 2s being a lesser, less dark color, and the 4s being a very dark color green. Again, much like sea surface temperature fronts, these are key indicators of fronts or breaks between plankton and no plankton. So in some of these areas, based on chlorophyll or the turbidity of the water, you could see a very dense kind of dark water next to a very clear water, which presents itself with a great opportunity for bait fish to congregate, and obviously a place where the pelagic fish would come and pick off the bait fish. So you're really looking, much like sea surface temperature fronts, you're looking for those 3s and the 4s, the strongs and the very strongs. This is a very important feature. All right, any questions specifically on plankton or plankton concentrations or fronts? If not, we can just keep moving. All right, Dan, you want to jump in on this one?
Yeah, I'm going to jump back in and talk about one of my favorite features is sea surface height anomaly. So bringing up the menu, and as Eric alluded to earlier, you know, this menu is basically everything right here at a touch. You can turn off and on, and you can look at multiple layers. We'll touch on that here in a minute as well. But for right now, we're going to turn on the sea surface height anomaly and close out the menu. And so now we're seeing a new color of lines on screen. It's this brown orange color that you're looking at. These are your sea surface height anomaly information. And these are commonly referred to as upwelling and downwelling. And what this is the ocean has an average height, kind of like your average tide in tidal waters. But out on the ocean, there is an average height, and they are able to measure changes in that height from satellite. And it's accurate to centimeters. Here on the Furuno, we're showing it in inches. So what we're seeing is an area where there is an upwelling of 7.9 inches. Now, it's a little counterintuitive. It says minus 7.9. And then over here on the downwelling, it's a positive number. It's 11.8. So looking at upwellings and downwellings a little closer, an upwelling is where the sea surface height has gone down and reached a bottom point where now it has stopped and starting to rise back up. So what we're seeing here, for example, is the average level of the ocean has dropped 10 inches, and now it's starting to rise back up. When it does that, it brings cooler water and it brings nutrients up from the bottom, and the bait fish follow that. So there are typically more bait fish found on an upwelling. Conversely, on a downwelling, it's where the ocean has reached a high point and started to drop. So here the ocean is 10 inches above the average, and it's starting to go back down. And when it does that, it takes all the nutrients away. It just flushes everything away. You know, we've all been out to our favorite fishing spots on one day and caught fish, and then on another day not caught any fish. This is one of the primary reasons that might have happened. You got out there on one day and it was an upwelling, and the following day when you didn't catch, it happened to be a downwelling. That's where this comes into play. So next, in addition to upwellings and downwellings, what they create are called eddies, which are these circles. And the eddies actually have a rotation, a current rotation. So upwellings rotate in a counterclockwise direction, and downwellings rotate in a clockwise direction. And then what you get is in the middle, we call it a convergence zone. And this is even better because it creates an upwards water column. And typically, if you can get on the zero, and this is where the ocean is at its average, and you've got 2 inches up on one side and 2 inches down on the other. This convergence zone between these two eddies is where you're going to find a lot of bait fish activity, and your pelagics are going to come into that. So being able to locate this convergence zone is a wonderful tool to have.
All right, let's go back for just a quick minute. I do want to explain too about sea surface height anomaly, that you are looking, as Dan mentioned, you're looking for these eddies. So you have to see these circular patterns. Just seeing straight lines on your screen doesn't necessarily denote an upwelling or a downwelling or a good convergence zone area. So you're really looking for these concurrent or adjacent eddy areas where circles appear on your screen. Just want to make sure that that was clear. All right, looks like we may have a couple questions. Let's see here. Is plankton strength related to watercolor? I think that's the basis for that is chlorophyll. So there can be some change or turbidity in watercolor, but it is not always necessarily the case just with plankton strength. And then the second question is, if you had to choose one feature to complement SST for yellowfin in the Atlantic, which is the most productive? We'll tell everybody on this call, and Dan and I and some of our team members have spent an awful lot of time talking to our oceanographers, that probably the 3 most important features in determining where you're fishing, obviously seasonality is part of this, but again, our oceanographers have a recipe for each one of these fish species. Bathymetry, so your bottom, what your depths are, what the contours of the bottom look like, obviously, sea surface temperatures, and plankton. Those are your most important. Of course, you can throw sea surface height anomaly, you can throw currents and eddies and other features in there. But if you had to pick between 3, those would be them there. So hopefully that answers your question, Dale. All right, good questions. Keep them coming, folks. We're going to continue to move on. All right. So now we're going to get into weed lines. There's a lot to cover here because there's a little bit of confusion. Just want to make sure everybody's clear about what weed lines are. So if you have any questions during this section, please chat them. So clicking on weed lines, turning it on, again, clicking out of the menu. From a zoomed out view, this is what you're going to see on your screen as weed lines are present. You're seeing these pink or magenta colored dots all over your screen. If you look at the legend, and remember, Dan, encouraged everybody to turn their legends on. We very much encourage that. Older weed lines are going to show up lighter color, and newer weed lines are going to show up darker color. So let's take a couple different screens and kind of dig into this a little bit. As you zoom in, you'll notice the weed lines start changing form, and there's actually lines on your screen. Again, you can see older weed lines being lighter color, newer weed lines being the darker color. Let's dial this in even just a little bit further so we can explain what we're looking at here. So weed lines are based on reflectivity of the water. They come from NASA satellites, and the imagery that comes back reflective off of the water gets put into an algorithm, and our oceanographers then determine where the most prominent weed lines are. Because reflectivity, there can be false reflectivity off of the bottom floor of the ocean in shallower waters. Because of that, we are limited at this point to really only putting weed lines in areas beyond 20 miles. There are some caveats or exceptions for that, like in the Keys, sometimes you will see weeds that are closer than 20 miles to shore, but for the most part, you're only going to see weeds beyond 20 miles out. So let's talk about this image, what I'm circling here on the screen. This is the prominent reflective weed lines, or images that our oceanographers have seen, and now they're actually drawing contour lines around those areas of weeds. Weeds don't obviously appear just like this out in the ocean, but these are lines that are actually drawn around those weed areas. So remember, you may see weeds out there that may not show up in your chart plotter as weed lines. We don't want to produce false positives and put those out there. We're only going to put out the most prominent of weed lines. And I can attest to this. Dan and I both can, as can several users of the service already. Dan and I have taken several charter flights as well as boat trips out to verify the locations of these weed lines. Having said that, we know it's a big ocean. There's a lot going on out there, and weeds are constantly moving and breaking up. So because of that, we give you 3 days worth of weed line. So here's an example of old weed line. You can always click on a weed line. You can see the date that weed line occurred or when it was put into our system. And now you're looking at a newer weed line. Again, of course, the color changed, but you can always click on a weed line and pull the data of exactly when that weed line was put into our system. Another thing that we use for weed lines is an animation loop. So we give you 3 days of weed line data, -2 days. So that's 2 days ago, -1 day, which is 1 day ago, and then today. So if you turn on this animation loop, what you'll see on your screen is, and I'm going to go through these the way it would appear on your screen, -2 days, -1 day, and today. Probably not the best example that we captured here, but in a perfect world, you would see where the same patch of weeds moves from 2 days ago, yesterday, to today. And remember, weed lines are constantly moving. Weed lines are constantly breaking up. And this service is impacted by cloud cover. So if the NASA satellite that does its pass once a day has extreme cloud cover, it's not going to pick up the reflectivity off the water. So you may see days where it's -2 days, -1 day, and then nothing. So anyway, this is a tool for you to locate weeds. Of course, you also have to think about where the currents are going, where the Gulf Stream on the East Coast is going, to try to locate those weeds. And as Dan, I think, mentioned, for anybody who's on this call on the West Coast, we cannot broadcast kelp, only weed lines. Apparently our oceanographers don't have a methodology for finding reflectivity from kelp. All right, so that's weed lines. If anybody has any questions, go ahead and chat them. Before we ask questions again, we're going to go into fish recommendations. Fish recommendations is probably the most straightforward of all of our features, and fish species. So on Furuno, something we wanted to explain right off the bat is, as soon as people download the fish mapping software on Furuno, you're going to see quite a few species in there. The only data you're going to get is from these top 6 species. So tuna, billfish, swordfish, kingfish, wahoo, and mahi. The rest of these that you see on your screen will ultimately be removed. And Eric, remind me what software update that is. I know it's coming next fall.
Yeah, that'll be in the fall, version 3. The software update will have a lot of new features and a lot of capabilities. But one of the things that changed was a specification in the actual software, where there was going to be a subcategory with all these species, and we decided to kind of minimalize that and kind of make it simpler. So those bottom 6 or bottom 5 will be removed in lieu of the top 6. So yeah, it was just something that we couldn't get into removing before the QC went through on version 2 software. Version 2, of course, for TZtouch3 has a lot of new features like PVG, fish adrifted, as well as fish mapping. So yeah, these were a remnant of a design change in the actual fish mapping spec that we couldn't remove. But in the next revision, those will be removed. As Dan and Geoff will say, they don't do anything right now. They're just you can turn them on, but they won't actually show you anything for those types of fish. Everything will be relegated to the top 6.
Yep. So not to worry though, because blue marlin, if you're
issue.
looking for blue marlin, they'll still be under the billfish heading, and if it's albacore in your area, they'll be under the tuna heading, or bluefin or big guy or yellowfin. So let's go specifically into some of those species. You can see on the left-hand side that each one of these species has been designated with a color that corresponds with that species. Now we'll just give you some examples. Billfish, for instance, is a bluish purple color. If you click on the actual bubble where the fish recommendation occurs, you'll see it'll pull up exactly when that recommendation occurred. Remember what Dan said a bunch of slides back, that fish recommendations happen twice a week, Tuesday morning and Friday morning. So this is showing you when that update was made. And of course, it's showing you what it is. It's billfish. Much like wahoo, it's a pinkish magenta-ish color. If you click on one of those dots, one of the recommendations, you'll see the time and then what the species is. Of course, you will often see on your screen several species together if you have all of the species clicked on. And sometimes they get a little confusing because here you see an overlap, where there's a swordfish area with a billfish area mixed in together, and that it gets a little confusing. So you can always click on your screen on any one of the bubbles, the fishing recommendation bubbles, and pull up exactly what that species is. Here's just a representation with animated fish of the various species that are represented in this particular screen. I think it's important to tell anybody who's using the service not to just rely on fish recommendations. Remember, our oceanographers are making recommendations for thousands of miles of ocean. So they are pulling a recipe for each one of these species based on that bathymetry, sea surface temperatures, plankton, and other data, and putting the likelihood of a fish to appear or occur in a certain area on the screen. These are not based on actual catch reports. These are predictive in nature. So we remind people that just because you see a wahoo out here does not mean that you may not catch other species in that area. It just means it has the recipe for wahoo. The conditions of the sea in that area have the conditions, the recipe for wahoo. What we found more often than not, and we hear time and time again, is that these areas are much more likely to produce bait. So you'll see the conditions necessary for catching these various species. So here's an example of layering, and we talked about this earlier. We encourage everybody to use combo screens, so layer screens together. And two of the most important screens to layer are plankton fronts and sea surface temperature fronts. And as Dan described in sea surface temperature fronts, and I described in plankton fronts, you're looking for the strong and very strong breaks, and especially where those overlap or they coincide or run together. So in this particular slide, you're seeing a very strong, if you can see my cursor, sea surface temperature in red here, break. You're also seeing a strong plankton front break here. So knowing that you have some very strong breaks in this area, if you didn't have any fishing recommendations in this area, which happens occasionally, you'll turn on your plotter and you'll look for fishing recommendations and just there aren't any in your area. You want to look for where these breaks are and where they overlap, coincide. So here's an example of layering fish recommendations on top of sea surface temperature and plankton fronts. And really this just illustrates the point that we're trying to make. And the point is looking for those strong and very strong breaks tends to coincide with where the fish recommendations are. Really important to use all the features, or at least sea surface temperature and plankton, instead of just relying on fish recommendations. All right, I think there's maybe one question here. The question was, will the bottom 6 species in the list that we previously showed automatically update when available?
And I just answered that.
Yep.
So yes, the nice thing about the version 2 upgrade, which you'll need to install in any TZtouch3 MFD, is that it now includes the capability to have full automatic online downloads for future software revisions. So version 3 and all future updates for TZtouch3 will now be as simple as clicking on the upgrade button when the MFD has an internet connection. So it should be very, very simple to upgrade any TZtouch3 MFD in the future.
Wow, that's great. All right, Eric, you want to talk us through hardware?
Sure. One of the great things about the new BBW X4 is that it comes as a complete system and includes the antenna and all the networking cables, as well as the antenna cable, power cable, and the audio cable as well. The audio cable simply has a white and read RCA jacks to output. You can convert that to an aux jack, 3.5 millimeter, or just connect that directly into your stereo. Of course, the TZtouch3 MFDs have the capability to have full radio control when you have SiriusXM, of course, full weather control, and now, of course, the new fish mapping functionality as well. So yeah, we're pretty excited. TZtouch3 has been a very, very successful introduction for us over the past year. The biggest problem we have right now is just making enough of them for our customers, which is a great problem to have. But even though it can be frustrating, I understand for some people in the field. But the SiriusXM interface and this new BBWX4 has been really truth tested. We're pretty excited to release it in conjunction. Of course, the version 2 software does have the new PVG feature that we've been touting, as well as the fishing and drifted features as well, which are really kind of revolutionary in the market. If you want more information on the BBWX4, please just head over to the Furuno USA website to get more information. This is also one of the lowest costs I've ever seen on a BBWX SiriusXM module. And I think we even have a special on it that Geoff and Dan will talk about it as well. But it is a complete system. So just realize that when you get it, it does come with the antenna, does come with the antenna cable, and all the wiring necessary to plug it right into either directly into an MFD, TZtouch3 MFD, because it's an Ethernet device, and it'll just plug right in. Or if you have a hub, it'll plug into the hub. So if you have any questions specifically on integration, and also once the module is seen on the network, it automatically unlocks all of the fish mapping functionality, as well as weather and radio functionality, assuming you have all the, you've subscribed to the system in the right way. Here is where, if you don't have the latest software for your TZtouch3 MFD to allow fish mapping, at this time, this is where you have to go in and download the latest V2 software for TZtouch3 MFDs. But as I just answered in the last question, once this kind of manual software update is done, all the future software updates will now be directly online and much, much easier, very similar to a smartphone update with Android or with iOS with Apple. So that's kind of nice.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So talking about price, the fish mapping service is $99.99 per month, but please keep in mind, this is a superset. It includes all the features of offshore weather, which is $60 a month. So realistically speaking, for only $40 extra per month, you're getting these 8 fantastic fishing specific features. It's a fixed cost. You're not paying for regions. You pay the monthly fee, and you're getting our entire coverage area. You can also suspend your service when you're not using it. With all the SiriusXM subscriptions, there is no contract required. You can pay monthly or semi-annually or annually. It's your choice. And if you only fish part of the year, you can suspend your service for up to 6 months when you're not using it. Also, regarding fish mapping, if $100 a month is too much, or if you don't need it for a long period of time, you're only fishing heavy 1 month out of the year, you could upgrade just to fish mapping for that 1 month, and at the end of the month downgrade. There's no cost to upgrade your service. We charge a $5 fee to downgrade your service, so you can use that as a cost savings as well. And then next, talking about specials. As Eric mentioned, the BBWX4 is the lowest price of Furuno SXM receivers ever been. And there's a $100 rebate that is in effect until the end of the year. Basically, you buy the receiver, you subscribe to the service, can be any of the weather or fish mapping packages. And once you've subscribed, you can go online at SiriusXM.com/marine rebate, fill out a form, and then we will refund you $100 in the form of a Visa gift card. In addition to that $100 rebate for fish mapping, there is also a 1-month free trial offer. Simply mention it when you're calling to subscribe, or learn more at SiriusXM.com/marine offers. The first 30 days will be free. So that's another $100 value on top of the $100 rebate. So it really makes this thing a great deal. And next, I always do like to put in a plug for what made SiriusXM great in the first place, which is our great radio service. And as Eric mentioned, the BBWX4 is audio capable. The $99 per month does not include the audio. That is an additional amount because we have several audio packages, and not everybody wants the same package. And also, some people don't have audio capability on their boat, so we don't want you paying for it if you don't have the capability. So that is an add-on, but it is added on at a discount of about 30% off of the regular audio rate.
All right, next, wanted to point out that we have partnered with a company called Dolphinfish Research Program. We encourage everybody on this call to join and follow Dolphinfish Research Program. Really important. Mahi, as we know it, is a very common species and often caught without really even thinking about the ramifications of catching them. To date, Dolphinfish Research Program, otherwise known as the DRP, has caught almost 30,000 and tagged almost 30,000 dolphinfish. And then there's been a little over 700 already recaptured, which provides really critical data on the migratory patterns and vertical movement of dolphin, especially in the Atlantic Ocean. So anybody who wants a free tagging kit and is willing to do this, it's fairly simple. If you get good at it, it's 30 seconds. Once you caught your mahi, you tag it, you throw it back in the water, and you record it. It's dolphintagging.com/tag. So anybody who's interested in doing this, we'd greatly appreciate your support for this great organization, and just reach out to them, or you can ask us as well how to get back in touch with them if you don't have a pen and paper right now. All right, last but not least is some resources for everybody on the call. We have a fish mapping website, SiriusXM.com/fish mapping. We have a dedicated video library by brand. So go to the video library, click on Furuno, and you'll see all the videos that are compiled in one location just for Furuno customers. And then we have a thriving YouTube channel as well. And Dan and I just created quite a few how-to videos. In fact, once we send you the recording of tonight's webinar, we will also send you a link to the Furuno fish mapping how-to videos. I really encourage everybody to watch these. They're simple. They're 4 or 5 minutes each for each feature, and they'll really give you a good overview on how to use and get the most out of the service. We encourage everybody to follow us on social media. Send us your pictures. Would love for you to join us there. All right, anybody who has any support related needs for SiriusXM, you're having problems with your service, you need to get set up, you're having troubles there, you just have general questions, or you want to give us feedback, marine.support@SiriusXM.com. This email address right here goes right to Dan. So important that you email this and you'll get Dan's tech support anytime you need it. Of course, if you have Furuno specific hardware related tech questions or tech issues, you can go to FurunoUSA.com/en/get_support, or join their forums at FurunoUSAforum.com. All right, that pretty much concludes our webinar tonight.